The game is set in the city of Dunwall, a dark fantasy electro-punk version of late 19th century London, and you play as Corvo Atano, a royal protector framed for killing his empress and lover. The game sees you going after the real conspirators behind Empress Jessamine Caldwin's murder and attempt to rescue Corvo's kidnapped daughter Emily Caldwin. Dishonored is also an immersive sim, which is a video game genre that emphasizes player choice. While the game Farming Simulator simulates the work of a farmer and Microsoft Flight Simulator simulates the process of flying an airplane, an immersive sim is designed for you to completely immerse yourself in a world and its story. Immersive sims do this by being very generous in the way players can interact with the systems of the game, making almost any Tactica player can envision viable. Deus Ex, System Shock and Prey are all great examples of immersive sims. When taking out assassination targets in Dishonored, you can take on your targets directly, fighting your way through city guards. But I prefer to play the game more stealthily, killing as few people as possible. It is actually possible to complete the game without killing anyone, including your assassination targets. The game takes place during the Rat Plague, a citywide infestation of large disease-ridden rodents. Anyone bitten by them gets sick, some turning into zombie-like weepers before passing away. Hordes of rats roam the streets of Dunwall, eating corpses and multiplying. This leads to a fun game mechanic where the amount of people you kill increases the amount of rats and weepers you have to deal with. Murder leads to a more chaotic world. One of the main things that made this game so much fun for me was the many magical powers you can utilize while sneaking through Dunwall. My favorite power, Blink, allowed me to teleport across vast distances, zipping from one rooftop to another and popping up behind guards to take them out. But what I liked most about Dishonored is the story. There are so many interesting characters and locations, my favorites being anything related to the occult aspects of the story. The Outsider and Granny Rags stands out as some of the most interesting characters, not just in Dishonored, but in games as a whole. There are 3 pieces of DLC for this game that's worth talking about before moving on to Dishonored 2. Dunwall City Trials is a collection of different challenge modes, some stealth focused, others combat focused. This prompted me to try out some of the combat abilities I hadn't engaged with in my stealth run of the main game, which was very fun and I am so glad I got to experience it. The Knife of Dunwall sees you take on the role as Dowd, the master assassin who was hired to assassinate Empress Jessamine Caldwin. The DLC gives you the option of taking a redemptive non-violent path, but after having so much fun with the combat engine in Dunwall City Trials, and also wanting to get quickly to the end of this DLC so that I could start Dishonored 2, I decided to lean into Dowd's more villainous character traits. When I was playing the base game, I saved often, and I quickly reloaded most times I was spotted by enemies, wanting to go through the levels undetected. In this DLC, I barely ever reloaded a save game, deciding to instead roll with the punches. I feel that the playstyles I used for the main game and the DLC fit each character I was playing as. Corvo was an innocent man that had been framed for an assassination, so it felt right to play him as non-violently and honorably as I could be bothered to basically. Dowd, on the other hand, was an actual assassin, and while he felt regret for killing the Empress, plunging the Empire of the Isles into chaos, it did not feel like he had any significant regret concerning any of the countless other lives that he had snuffed out during his long career, so I let myself sink into the mindset of a ruthless killer. That's a decision I would never even have been asked to consider in most other games, and one that feels much more gimmicky in a lot of other games that do give you a similar decision. One level in this DLC is set in a whale slaughterhouse. Whales are important in the world of Dishonored, as their oil is used to power various electrical devices. This is mirrored by the real 18th century spermaceti, or sperm oil, from sperm whales. But spermaceti in the real world was mostly used for lamps, heaters and candles, while whale oil in Dishonored is used to power various electrical instruments of death, among some more mundane things as well. Whales in Dishonored are also associated with the Void, which is said to be the source of all magic and horror in the world, and home to the Outsider, so many people carry runes and bone charms made of whale bones, inscribed with mystical symbols, although this practice is outlawed, as worship of the Outsider is illegal. The DLC starts off with Dowd being contacted by the Outsider, who sets him on the trail of a powerful witch named Delilah Copperspoon. Eventually, it is revealed that Delilah had been in contact with Dowd's second-in-command Billy Lurk and convinced her to betray her boss and mentor. If I had played the DLC non-violently, I would have had the option to banish Billy instead of killing her for her attempted coup. But since I was going down the high chaos route, she had to die. In the last DLC for Dishonored, the Brigmore Witches, Daud goes after Delilah herself. Apparently her plan was to possess the body of Emily Kaldwin. That way she could rule as Empress through Emily once she had been crowned after her mother's death. Throughout this DLC, I wavered between continuing to play as a cold killer or going back to a more stealthy approach. In the end, I had balanced it just enough that all that distinguished between whether I would end up with a high chaos or low chaos ending, where if I decided to kill Delilah or simply banish her to the void. So I just banished her first, reloaded my save, then killed her as well. Trophies unlocked. Dishonored 2 begins 15 years after the first game, with the return of Delilah Copperspoon, who with the help of Duke Luca Abel of the southern kingdom of Serkonos overthrows Empress Emily's rule. In fact, Delilah claims to be the secret sister of Jessamine Kaldwin, making her the true heiress to the throne. The story seems to build on the first Dishonored's low chaos ending, as many characters who could have been killed in the first game are still in play in the second game. Even Billy Lurk from the Knife of Dunwall shows up as a major supporting character, having changed her name to Megan Foster. The first choice you have to make in the game is whether to play as Corvo Atano again, or as his daughter Emily. The character you pick escapes Dunwall to travel to Serkonos' capital of Karnaca to neutralize Delilah's backers, while the character you don't pick gets turned into a stone statue by Delilah. I found it much more interesting to reclaim the kingdom as the empress of that kingdom than as the royal protector again, so I played as Emily on my first playthrough. It was also more interesting that Emily would now be the one to save her father, after her father had saved her as a child. Like with the first game, I wanted to play my first playthrough as non-violently as I could, without hampering myself too much. Due to some new moves you can do in combat and some cool new magic powers you can learn when playing as Emily, playing stealthily in this game was considerably more fun than it was in the first one. My favorite new power was Domino, which allowed me to link the fates of up to 4 enemies. After that I could kill or knock one of them out, and then the 3 others would suffer the same fate immediately. I had so much fun with this game that I decided to immediately do a second playthrough. There are so many ways to play, so this time I decided to play as Corvo, go for a high chaos ending, and decline the outsider's powers. On my first playthrough, I spent a lot of time exploring and doing optional things. On my second playthrough, I rushed through the game, going directly for my main assassination targets. Playing the game violently is even more fun in this game than it was in the first one. Limiting myself to not being able to use powers also led me to having to think outside the box. But I may do another playthrough of this game at some point, to play around with some of the powers that are exclusive to Corvo. Dishonored 2 does not have any story DLC, but it does have a standalone expansion, called Dishonored Death of the Outsider, using mostly the same game engine as Dishonored 2. Throughout the series, the Outsider has been shown to be the most powerful being in existence, and is blamed for all evil across the Isles. Both hated and loved, he resides in and draws power from the void, an ageless emptiness beyond mortal understanding. The religious order, the Abbey of the Everyman, bans all worship of the Outsider, but does more harm in maintaining that law than good. Witches and cultists make horrible sacrifices in his name, hoping to gain his favor, but few are ever touched by his gifts. He only grants his powers to a select few, then sits back and watches, because he simply finds the chaos to be entertaining. But he is not really that invested in what people do with the powers he grants them. That is, not until the events of this game. In Dishonored Death of the Outsider, you play as Billy Lurk, after the events of Dishonored 2. She has gone back to her life as an assassin and is trying to track down her old mentor Dodd in Karnaca. When she finally locates him, he is old and frail, and on death's door. But before leaving this realm, he has one last target for Billy to assassinate. The one that Dodd holds responsible for giving him the power to cause so much carnage back in Dunwall. The powers he used to kill Jessamine Kaldwin. He wants her to assassinate the Outsider. One of my favorite parts of this game was the heist mission. The only blade able to kill the Outsider was being held in a Karnacan bank. I quietly infiltrated the high security bank vault and left the scene without leaving any traces of ever having been there. And in true immersive sim fashion, that was only one of several ways I could have gone about robbing the bank. Dishonored draws a lot from the Thief video game series, and this level made me really interested in checking that out at some point. Death of the Outsider is a fitting conclusion to the Outsider's story in the series. Removing the Outsider from the cosmology of Dishonored leaves the story free to go in a lot of interesting directions. It used to be that anyone with powers would have to be granted them from the Outsider. Now the Void is free from any sort of control, and will likely spread its chaos much more randomly. If there is ever a Dishonored 3, I am really excited to see where that will lead to. But before we get to see that, I'm excited to check out Arkane Studios' next game, Deathloop. Given how great their other games are, I'm sure it's going to be amazing. So thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in seeing more videos about video games, movies, books, television shows, music, or anything else that I decided to make a video about, please consider subscribing. I have some fun ideas for what I'm going to do next. Have you played the Dishonored series? If so, which one is your favorite? And why? Again, thanks for watching. I'm gonna go stab somebody in the neck. See you in the next video.